they believe that our rights as Americans, as all human beings, don't come from any earthly authority. They don't come from Congress. They don't come from the Supreme Court. They come from God.
What a moron. What a terrifyingly dangerous moron. Politico has a doozy here of a headline. Trump allies prepare to infuse Christian nationalism in second administration. That's right. Apparently, there are Christians who want to have a role in the Trump government. Now, I know that may seem weird to you because I'm pretty sure Christians had a role in the last Trump government. And by the way, I'm quite sure there are some Christians that have a role in the Biden presidency. In fact, Joe Biden himself can't get through a day's worth of bad headlines about his son or about his own misdeeds without him reminding you what a devout Catholic he is. In fact, at the very moment he's signing whatever executive action he can sign to make sure that abortion is as legal and as ubiquitous as possible in this country, at a moment where he's trying to divide this country over the abortion issue and accuse his opponents of having women turn to back alley coat hanger type procedures. And at a time when Joe Biden assures his political base that he's never seen an abortion he hasn't loved, he also bends over backwards to remind you what a devout and believing, practicing Catholic he is. But he's not a Christian nationalist, no. Now, you may be confused right now. So the author of this Politico article is here to explain it for you. What exactly is different about these so-called Christian nationalists who want to populate the Trump administration and Joe Biden himself, who, of course, calls himself a devout Christian? Well, here's the difference.
The one thing that unites all of them, because there's many different groups orbiting Trump, but the thing that unites them as Christian nationalists, not Christians, by the way, because Christian nationalists is very different, is that they believe that our rights as Americans, as all human beings, don't come from any earthly authority. They don't come from Congress. They don't come from the Supreme Court. They come from God.
Wow. I mean, wow. Now, you'd be forgiven to think back to your senior year of high school civics class when you were trying to remember at the test the preamble of the Declaration of Independence, and all you could do was hum the song from Schoolhouse Rock. Now, there were two of them. The better song was the Constitution, right? We the people in order to form a more perfect union. But there was also the one about the Declaration of Independence where the kid was reciting the preamble, and he kept saying, we believe that we are endowed with certain inalienable rights. Endowed by whom? Endowed by our Creator, right? And those inalienable rights include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And of course, the Bill of Rights in the Constitution specifically spells out that we are born with these inherent rights. They are not granted by the government. In fact, it's what makes the United States of America so unique at the time. If we weren't born with these rights and the government grants them to us, as this really smart political reporter at Politico seems to think, then that means the government can take those rights away. That's what makes the genius of Washington and Hamilton and Adams and Jefferson and Madison so unique. Our Constitution does not, in fact, distribute rights to the citizenship. The Constitution specifically spells out how the government is barred from infringing on these rights that we are born with. And somehow that concept is lost on one of the key journalists working for Politico circa 2024, covering the presidential election. One more time.
The one thing that unites all of them, because there's many different groups orbiting Trump, but the thing that unites them as Christian nationalists, not Christians, by the way, because Christian nationalist is very different,
Mhm.
is that they believe that our rights as Americans, as all human beings, don't come from any earthly authority. They don't come from Congress. They don't come from the Supreme Court. They come from God.
In other words, what makes these Christian nationalists really terrifying is they understand the founding of our nation. They understand the basic values and principles woven into the very fabric and DNA of our founding principles, values, and our founding documents. That's what makes them dangerous. What a moron. What a terrifyingly dangerous moron. By the way, this person right here, the African-American gentleman there hosting the show, that's Michael Steele. He used to be the chairman of the Republican National Committee until Trump broke his brain. And now he's a regular contributor and even guest host on MSNBC. And he knows better. And he just nodded along and never actually corrected the record. So I guess now you understand the big difference between Joe Biden wrapping himself around his little Vatican rag and any Republican or conservative who wants to work in the Trump administration who also professes Christian beliefs. The difference is the Christians who want to work for Trump actually don't want the government to have power over your lives and your basic rights. That's what makes them more dangerous, according to, what is her name again? She's got she has to buy a vowel. She's got so many consonants in the name. Hang on. It's, it's not there in the headline. All right. Well, you know what? I don't want to waste your brain power knowing what her name is. All right. So a big part of this article here I wanted to read out for you, because apparently what's really, really scary about conservatives is they have organizations that have been around for decades that tell you exactly what they stand for, traditional conservative principles and values, like the Heritage Foundation. They're the scary ones. The Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 offers more visibility in what policy agenda a future Trump administration might pursue. It says policies that support LGBTQ plus rights, subsidize single motherhood, and penalize marriage should be repealed because subjective notions of gender identity threaten Americans' fundamental liberties. Well, the way those policies are carried out certainly can threaten your fundamental liberties. For instance, let's say you're a young woman who wants to have privacy in a female-only space. Well, it's your right to do that, isn't it? And it will be infringed upon by LGBTQ plus policies that allow a grown man to go into that space. Just as one example. It also proposes increasing surveillance of abortion and maternal mortality reporting in the states, compelling the Food and Drug Administration to revoke approval of chemical abortion drugs, and protecting religious and moral objections for employers who decline contraception coverage for employees. Let me just repeat, because every single thing that Politico just laid out here about the scary agenda of Heritage Foundation was actually the law of the land 10 years ago. Kid you not. 10 years ago, every single thing, chemical abortion drugs by the FDA, they hadn't approved those yet. Employers not wanting to have to pay for contraceptions and abortions for their employees. Before Obamacare, they didn't have to do that. Surveillance of abortion and maternal mortality reporting in the states. I have no idea even what that's referring to. But I assure you, the 10, 15 years ago, that was the norm in this country. They're terrified now that these Christian nationalists are going to come in and basically roll back what Obama's put in or what Biden's just recently put in to play. Now, you should also know that at the heart of this controversy over so-called Christian nationalists is an individual named Russell Vought. Now, Russell Vought was the director of OMB, Office of Management and Budget, under President Trump. And since then, he left the Trump administration, of course, at the end of the 4 years, and started an organization called the Center for American Renewal, or Center for the Renewal of America, one of those types of organizations. And he writes white papers and advocates for policies that might correct some of the problems that we're experiencing in this country. I want to show you Russ Vogt's confirmation hearing when he was going through the approval process of the United States Senate. And as Politico and as this woman wants to scare you about Christian nationalists taking over the Trump administration, I want you to see Russ Vogt, and I want you to see the kind of questions that he had to endure from Bernie Sanders upon his confirmation. And I want you to think of two things while you watch this video. The first is I want to remind you that it's literally in our Constitution that there is no religious test for someone who wants to work for our government. You are not allowed to judge someone's ability to work for the United States government and the federal government. You're not allowed to take into account their religious beliefs when hiring or firing them, right? It's literally in the Constitution. That's number one to bear in mind. And number two, as you watch this, you tell me who frightens you more. The person being questioned, Russ Vought, who we're told by the left you should be terrified of, or Bernie Sanders, the person doing the questioning, and the political left that he represents. Take a watch.
This issue that has bothered me and bothered many other people. And that is in the piece that I referred to that you wrote for a publication called Resurgent. You wrote, quote, Muslims do not simply have a deficient theology. They do not know God because they have rejected Jesus Christ, his son, and they stand condemned. End of quote. Do you believe that that statement is Islamophobic?
Absolutely not, Senator. I'm a Christian, and I believe in a Christian set of principles based on my faith. That post, as I stated in the questionnaire to this committee, was to defend my alma mater, Wheaton College, a Christian school that has a statement of faith that includes the centrality of Jesus Christ for salvation. And
again, I apologize. Forgive me. We just don't have a lot of time. Do you believe that people in the Muslim religion stand condemned? Is that your view?
Again, Senator, I'm a Christian, and I wrote that piece.
Well, what does that say?
The statement of faith of Wheaton.
I understand that. I don't know how many Muslims there are in America. I really don't know. Probably a couple of million. Are you suggesting that all of those people stand condemned? What about Jews?
Before we get into that, what about Jews? What about Jews? Before we get into that, can I just, I know this seems kind of silly and maybe you don't know this, but I'm pretty sure that you do. But for a Christian to believe that, I mean, you may not like the word stand condemned, but for a Christian to believe that a Muslim might not have a happy ending there after death, when the judgment day comes, is not breaking news here. That's sort of been the understanding of most Christians for about, I don't know, 2,000 years, let's say. By the way, I don't know how to break it to Bernie Sanders, but just wait till he finds out what Muslims think of unbelievers. He might want to look into that. But then he realizes he might not be getting enough traction because of Muslims. So then he turns to the Jews. So let's see what about the Jews? Million.
Are you suggesting that all of those people stand condemned? What about Jews? They stand condemned too?
Senator, I'm a Christian.
I understand you are a Christian, but this country is made up of people who are not just. I understand that Christianity is the majority religion, but there are other people who have different.
He's really upset. When Russell Vought here, which, by the way, God, the man deserves a medal for just keeping his cool during this questioning process. He really does need to be the chief of staff for the Trump White House, I think. When Russell Vought says, Mr. Senator, Mr. Sanders, I'm a Christian, he's not saying, I'm a Christian and we're in the majority so we can say and do whatever we want. No, what he's saying is, I am a Christian. I was writing an article for a Christian newspaper at my Christian college, and I was professing the belief of the vast majority of Christians around the world. This is what we believe. That's what he's trying to say, and Bernie Sanders is too ignorant to even understand that or allow him to finish his sentence. He just, I understand you're a Christian. That doesn't mean you're right. Okay, so just watch how it finishes.
We'll have different religions in this country and around the world. In your judgment, do you think that people who are not Christians are going to be condemned?
Thank you for probing on that question. As a Christian, I believe that all individuals are made in the image of God and are worthy of dignity and respect, regardless of their religious beliefs. I believe that as a Christian, that's how I should treat all individuals.
And do you think your statement that you put into that publication, they do not know God because they've rejected Jesus Christ the Son and they stand condemned, do you think that's respectful of other religions?
Senator, I wrote a post based on being a Christian and attending a Christian school that has a statement of faith that speaks clearly with regard to the centrality of Jesus Christ in salvation.
I would simply say, Mr. Chairman, that this nominee is really not someone who is what this country is supposed to be about.
So again, knowing that our Constitution specifically prohibits a religious test for anyone working in the federal government, and hearing exactly the question and answer exchange there of Russell Vogt back in 2017 when he was going through the confirmation process, and knowing the basic understanding, the fundamental understandings of basic Christian doctrine or dogma, no matter what your flavor or denomination, based on that exchange, who frightens you more? Mr. Vogt, the scary Christian nationalist, or Bernie Sanders and the godless, ignorant political left in this country? It's pretty obvious which path I'm walking down.